Good evening, everyone. I'm Paul Danieri, Provost and Executive Vice Chancellor, and it's great to see everybody out on a Thursday night before a long weekend to talk about some really exciting and important things. And really, we're talking about two linked things tonight. One is the campaign for UC Riverside, which I'll say a little bit about in a moment, and the other is social innovation at UC Riverside and in the Riverside community and in the Inland Empire and beyond. So first, something about our campaign, which itself is something of an innovation because it's the first comprehensive capital campaign in the history of UC Riverside. It's going to be crucial to achieving the aspirations of this university in the coming years, and it's already had a big impact. Last night, we had an event to celebrate a new endowed professorship in the Graduate School of Education, and to see the kind of talent we can attract to this campus is emblemized by the people who are already here, and every time we get to hire another faculty member, we just become that much bigger and better and stronger. So the campaign has a goal of $300 million, and that sounds like a lot of money. I assure you we'll have no trouble figuring out how to spend it, so don't worry about that. And actually, we're pretty close. We're just about halfway there. So we made a lot of progress already before we went public. But what we're doing now is taking the campaign public. And in order to do that, we're holding a series of events that celebrate what is great about UC Riverside, about the contributions UC Riverside makes to students, but also to the community, to the state, the country, and the world. And those contributions are summarized or captured by 6 themes of the campaign, which you see listed on the banners around the room. And these things grow out of the historic excellence of UC Riverside, things like from genomics to harvest and renewable nature, but also focus on where we see ourselves going in the future, health and wellness, emerging technologies, and of course, social innovation. We started off a few weeks ago with a presentation. Well, I should go back a step. So we're going to have one event covering each of these themes or addressing each of these themes. But we started out a few weeks ago with an event to kick the whole thing off featuring Ted Mitchell, the Undersecretary of Education. How many of you were able to be present at that event? Okay. Well, for those of you who weren't, I'm just going to read a bit of what he said because I think it sets us up very well for today. He said, "I wish we could clone what is happening at UC Riverside and bring it to every college and university in the country. You are showing the kinds of partnerships, the kinds of commitments that need to be made if we are going to reach President Obama's goal to have the kind of higher education system that supports a diverse democracy." And that's a theme Undersecretary Mitchell has repeated over the past few years, that the things that we're doing at UC Riverside are the models for the rest of the country. So in a very big, broad sense, UC Riverside is a giant social innovation, an example, hopefully, if others have the vision to adopt it, driving forward the values that we share across this country in terms of higher education. This project is itself a social innovation. I think at the first meeting we had to discuss it, it was called something else. And Karthik Ramakrishnan and one or two others immediately said, we should call it social innovation. And I'll let Karthik and Maria talk a little bit more about what we mean by social innovation. So let me get things moving along then by introducing them. First, Karthik Ramakrishnan is a professor in political science and in the School of Public Policy. He's a specialist in immigration policy and Asian politics, and has really been the scholar who's defined the discussion and the debate on the role of Asian Americans in politics in California. He's active in the community as well. He's a member of the board of the California Endowment. Maria Anguiano is Vice Chancellor for Planning and Budget here at UC Riverside, and she is a driving force, a national leader in developing innovative financial strategies for universities. And lest that sound like it's disconnected from some of our goals, the thing that makes Maria a leader in the field is her ability to connect the discussion on finance and strategy to the core goals of the institution. And in that sense, she's redefining the role of the CFO in universities in this country, to focus on the mission as well as the dollars, to bring those two conversations together in a way that is wholly new because they're traditionally been divorced. She's a vocal advocate for access and success on this campus, and again, as a leader in developing new and better ways of funding them. So let me turn this over then to Karthik Ramakrishnan and Maria Anguiano.
Good evening, everybody. Okay, well, myself and Karthik have the pleasure of introducing our Changemaker program. I'd like to say a few words, though, about the history of social innovation at UCR, because UCR's faculty, students, alumni, and staff have a long history of social innovation, everything from working to eradicate poverty to continuing the fight for civil rights, immigration rights, and we're focused on strengthening our social fabric through quality education, robust public policy, and community engagement. And because we're so proud of this, and proud of the UCR family for working creatively to solve our most pressing social problems, and we know we'll continue to do so, because we're not engaged in business as usual. And so given that, we want to recognize our social innovators who are figuring out how to solve these issues in novel ways that are more effective, efficient, and sustainable. So our Committee on Social Innovation, which represents myself, Karthik, and Eddie Como, also a professor here at UCR, have established the Changemaker Program to recognize these contributions to social innovation and empowerment locally and around the world.
Thank you, Maria. And I'll just give a little bit of a context of where this fits in with our larger agenda and plans to lift up and support and empower future efforts in social innovation, not just at UCR, but more broadly within the community. So Maria and I both serve on boards in California that are trying to do good and trying to improve the lives of Californians. So we got together and started thinking of ways that we can help generate more interest in this region. There already is significant interest by the Irvine Foundation, California Endowment, and many other foundations, but what they have found is that there isn't enough effort here, there isn't enough investments here, there isn't enough of an ecosystem. So this is the early stage of trying to build that ecosystem. So we're hoping to build a network of peers and mentors, and then next to have a set of awards, monetary awards, but also having mentoring in place. And this is where Maria's innovations on thinking of systems and systems change come in, to come up with systems that can support those efforts, with the eventual plans on building a center for social innovation with units like the School of Public Policy and other units like business administration involved. So that in a nutshell is where this fits into that larger picture. Today we're going to honor people that are from the region. We had over 80 applications, nominations and self-nominations for these change makers. Incredible talent, incredible stories. We're just featuring a few of them here today, but on our website, socialinnovation.ucr.edu, we'll have more of those stories, and we really hope that you will be part of this process as we build it out.
So with that, we'll get to the more exciting part of the night, which is introducing our change makers and having them talk a little bit about their initiatives and their innovations. So I'll start with our first honorees, Daniel and Daryl Peden. Daniel and Daryl are graduates of UCR, class of 2015, and they're co-founders, board members, and executives of Sigma Beta Psi Youth Services. Their organization focuses on mentoring our community's youth with everything from education, better financial decisions, livable wages, upward mobility is just some of the things that they focus on when they're mentoring their kids. And so they partner with different school districts and school administrators in order to provide these mentoring services, and they've reached over 26,000 mentoring hours recorded already. 15 schools in the Inland Empire and over 400 students mentored. So with that, I have a warm applause for Daniel and Daryl, and invite Daniel up.
Thank you so much. Let me adjust this real quick. Well, first I want to say thank you very much for this honor. It's something that we've been working on for the last 15 years, or actually 18 years, and we believe that we've made a significant impact in the lives of young men and women throughout the Inland Empire. To start, I'd like to say that 1 in 3 young people grow up without a mentor. Research confirms that quality mentoring relationships have powerful, positive effects on young people in a variety of personal, academic, and professional situations. Young people who are mentored are 130% more likely to hold leadership positions and 55% more likely to go to college. My twin brother and I had mentors, and they changed our lives. In 1998, I was a junior in high school, and I met a teacher by the name of Ernest Ronay IV. He approached Daryl and I and said, "You two are going to be in my new club that I started in this high school called Sigma Beta Xi." And sure enough, we joined that club, and the rest is history. As a result, his mentorship has taught us many things. One thing that it instilled in us is that the race is not given to the swift nor the strong, but to the one who endures to the end. Just about 10 years later, we met Eric Arrington, who we called Coach E, one of my dearest friends and mentor. Coach E was at and this is a very important story I like to tell, but Coach E was he was celebrating his invitation to the Raiders training camp. And after he was doing that celebration, him and his friends went out to the parking lot, and several men surrounded him and pulled a gun out on his friend. And as a result, Eric jumped in front of his friend, grabbed him, and turned his back to the firearm, and was shot 8 times in the back, saving his friend's life. As a result, he was paralyzed for the rest of his life. And the reason why I tell you this story is because anybody can be a mentor, and that's the importance of the message here of the men that mentored me in my life and helped change our lives. Coach E taught me something very important. And what he taught me was that it's not what you're going through in life, it's how you go through it. Daryl and I would not be the people we are today without the love and guidance of these amazing men. And of course, I'm going on a tangent, I forgot to go through my slides. So over on the right is Mr. Ronay. And you can see him there with a bunch of guys that work with us in our organization. And here is Eric Arrington. And that's Daryl right there, working in some football camps with him throughout the Inland Empire. So Daryl and I are convinced that mentoring works. We founded Sigma Beta Xi Incorporated in 2001 as a nonprofit organization with the goal to break the cycle of poverty through mentoring, education, and community organizing. To date, we have mentored over 400 students, young men and women, and have with a combined 26,000 mentoring hours in the Inland Empire. We are revolutionizing how mentoring is done by placing a mentor in every school in the Inland Empire. And through our fraternity-style mentoring model, we are changing lives. And we hope that all of you will consider becoming a mentor and impacting people's lives as my mentors has impacted me. So thank you very much for this honor, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Daniel, for your inspiring words. Now we have our next change maker, Carrie Garcia. Carrie Garcia is a UCR alumni who's working to transform the community she grew up with the Saboba Band of Luciano Indians. Her efforts are focused on raising awareness on the importance of culture and tradition, as well as family services, education, tribal government, museum studies, environmental stewardship, and activism. So just a small piece of the world. And her work has been impactful at the local level, the state level, and national levels. She's also serving as her third term as a board member for the statewide nonprofit organization, the California Indian Basket Weavers Association, which also works to promote and perpetuate education, traditional California Indian basket weaving and its practices. And so with that, I'd like to welcome Carrie to the stage.
Good evening, everyone. Let me see if I can. My name is Carrie Garcia, and I am an enrolled member of the Saboba Band of Luciano Indians in Southern California. Our tribe is about 7,000 acres, and we have around 1,300 tribal members. I was born and raised on the reservation. I grew up on the reservation. I went to school in town. I graduated from San Jacinto High School in 1998. Then I spent 5 years at the community college because I really didn't know what I was doing. After that, I transferred here to UC Riverside, and I finished with my bachelor's degree in Native American Studies. And that's really when I started learning more about my cultural traditions of the Kuya and Luciano people. So after I graduated from UC Riverside, I started teaching at Noli Indian School on the reservation. I taught middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, social studies, and culture. I also became a board member for the California Indian Basket Weavers Association, and it's through the Basket Weavers, there we go. And it's through Basket Weavers that I started learning more about like our traditional ecological knowledge. I've been a board member for SEBA for about 10 years, and one of the programs that we started with California Indian Basket Weavers was called Tending the Wild. Tending the Wild, this is our photo right here. This lady right here, her name is Mabel McKay. She's a Pomo basket weaver and really well known throughout the country. There's actually an exhibit at the Autry National Center right now, and there's a section in that exhibit on Mabel McKay. She's woven the world's smallest basket. So through Tending the Wild, we started learning more about traditional ecological knowledge and land stewardship, and just kind of taking back the land and what we call reclaiming our land sovereignty. So with that information that I learned from our Tending the Wild program, I took it home and we started our traditional land resource management program. We started working in the canyon by ourselves, just kind of tending areas with our traditional basket materials, and that eventually grew into starting to collaborate and work with the school on the Indian reservation, Noli Indian School, and their science and their cultural departments. We took out the kids weekly to the different areas in the canyon. We started cleaning out the waterways and the watersheds and bringing back the plant life. We also found our basket material, which we call junkus. That area hadn't been used for a few decades, and so we kind of reestablished that. We started taking care of that, pulling out all of the dead material and letting it grow. The kids actually found a spring near the basket materials, and with that spring, they dug it up, built irrigation canals to the plant material, and then it just started thriving. So we've been working in our canyon for about 5 years now, and we've seen a big change. The men that are in our traditional land resource management program were all at-risk men, I guess you would say, the ones that really couldn't find any jobs because of their history and their past and everything, so we hired them. And through that, we've noticed a change in them, and it kind of became a wellness program. So it's helped them in their lives, you know, making them feel better about themselves and knowing that they're helping the community. Through this program that we have, we also established our wood supply. We have a wood supply, like firewood. And so in 2014, our reservation was hit with a severe flood, and we were able to actually pass out firewood to all of the elders in the community with that, and actually take care of the community because of the things that we had been doing. So we have here, this is some of our kids from the school right here, and we were teaching them about traditional ecological knowledge and how to be stewards of the land, their cultural practices and whatnot. Another program that we have at the Cultural Center in Saboba is our Cultural Connections. I work a lot with our Family Services Department, and with our Cultural Connections, we actually work with the kids that are placed in foster care or out-of-home care. So we bring them back to the community once a month, and we do activities with them in the community. We've done projects with the veterans from the tribe, and then we've also done projects with the elders for the tribe. We bring them back. So that way they have that connection to the tribe, to the land, to the tribe. So that way they don't feel like they're being left out because of the fact that they're in out-of-place homes. I guess on a statewide and national level, I like to do activism, I guess. And if you don't know, right now in North Dakota, they're having a battle with the Dakota Access Pipeline. And so in September, they sent a call out, and we're asking people to come with supplies to help the Native people there that are fighting the pipeline. So the cultural department, we were given permission from the tribe, and we did a donation drive, and we took 4 trucks with us and a 32-foot long trailer full of supplies and firewood and poles where we can build them kind of shelter. And so this was a joint effort between the Saboba Band of Luiseño Indians, the Santa Rosa Band of Cahuilla Indians, and the Rincon Band of Luiseño Indians. So all 3 of the tribes got together, and we were up there for about 5 days helping out the best that we could, any way that we could, as we as Native people do, as we go and we hear the call and we answer and we help out our communities. When we came back, we also did another drive at our local powwows, and we did a fundraiser drive for the Standing Rock community. We raised over $3,500, and we were able to send that to them to help with their legal fund and fighting with the Dakota Access Pipeline. So these are just some of the programs that I have, and I just do what I can for my community. At one time in 2008, one of the elders, the Tuolumne Miwok elders, asked me what it is that I wanted to do, and I said I wanted to change the world, and he just laughed at me. And I realized that the world is such a big place. And so what I ended up telling him afterwards was that I cannot change the world that we live in, but I can change the world that I live in, which means my community and things. And so that's what I do, is I just work for our community and do what I can to be a mentor to the community there. And just kind of say, if I can do it, then you can do it too. Thank you.
Carrie, thank you so much for sharing your dedication and commitment to your community. Now we have our final speaker before we proceed with our symposium. And this next honoree is Miri Oscon. She received her PhD from UCSD and is currently a UC Riverside professor of electrical and computer engineering. She was named UCR's first faculty climate action champion. Now her research goal is to create global environmental proactivity, providing solutions to climate change, inventing smart creative materials such as a sponge swimsuit. So I was like, what is a sponge swimsuit? It basically filters impurities from the water as the wearer swims, which is just amazing. And lithium-ion battery alternatives using affordable portobello mushrooms. This is really creative, amazing work. And so I'm just going to leave it at that because it's so amazing, the creativity and the work you're doing. She's also really involved all over the system, UC system, with our Public Utilities Board, and just a strong advocate of environmental issues. And with that, I'd like to welcome Miri to the podium.
So today I'm going to talk about, reducing carbon dioxide and then how we are, doing this in our lab. And what you see on the right is last May I organized UCR's very first Carbon Slam event. And to this event, we had Deputy Director from Washington, D.C., from ARPA-E, and then our mayor here, Riverside Mayor Rusty Bailey was part of it. And also we had our UCR's Sustainability Director and representatives from the Riverside Public Utility was part of it. So I spent like a day to prepare this logo, so that's why I keep using it in any occasion. And just make me happy. And so what actually I am going to, I don't know where to point this. Okay. So I just want to talk about, the importance of the carbon dioxide concentration in the air, and then give you some examples from the history. So if we look at here, the first slide shows an image from London. This is year 1952, and there were 4,000 people died just because of the excessive carbon dioxide, which actually came out of like burning the coal. And the second image is from today, and about 4,000 people every day dying in China. So I don't know, not many people knows this, but that makes about 1.6 million people dying every year in China just because of the air pollution and then high concentrations of carbon dioxide. So what we wanted to do in the group is like two active areas, the major contribution of carbon dioxide, we would like to, make something about it. And that's how the sponge actually came into the picture. And our goal was try to clean the oceans. Because today, the only way to clean the oceans is simply burning the surface oil. And this is one of the examples from the BP oil spills. And there was about like more than 70 million kilogram of carbon dioxide was introduced to the atmosphere just by burning the oil. And our goal is, can we make a material that absorbs the oil and then we don't have to burn and then we don't introduce carbon dioxide? Because this carbon dioxide not only, makes the air that we breathe dirty, but 25% of that is being absorbed by the ocean, which makes the oceans more acidic. And that impacts also the creatures that lives inside the ocean. So both outside and inside. So that's why we spend a lot of time to develop this type of material, which I'm going to introduce you in the next slide. So the idea here, so you have the oil spill, so we are going to spread our sponge and then hope that all that red is going to disappear so you'll get the ocean back and without introducing any carbon dioxide. And so this is the sponge material. Besides it's like, different types of great properties, what is more important in this case is the super hydrophobicity and oleophilicity that we talk about, which makes the sponge material highly, likes the oil, but it dislikes water. So it dislikes water, so when you put this in the ocean, it's just going to absorb the oil only. And as soon as, I don't know, I think this didn't come out very well, but so as soon as the oil molecule is next to the sponge, in less than milliseconds, it's going to be absorbed inside, and it's going to remain there. And so just to show you the scale of the impact our sponge material made, I just want to share you with some news about the awards that we received recently. This just happened last month, October, in Estonia. And we received the second place and Audience Favorite Choice Awards. And at the Climate Launchpad competition among 700 projects. So what we have done also, we just use the sponge material and apply this to variable technologies. And then we said, okay, that's how the sponge suit and the bikini came to life. And we got the first place in Rome at the simply the variable technology competition last year. So what we have done, we took the sponge and then embed it into a 3D printed, structure, and then that's how we get the final product of sponge. This is recyclable, and people start sending their sizes to me, and then saying that, can you please make one for me also? The second area that we would like to make an impact about the carbon dioxide reduction is simply the transportation. Because if you just look at here, this is belong to California, but not only California, but also in USA, the major contribution of carbon dioxide is coming from transportation. So we said, okay, why don't we start making an advanced, lithium-ion batteries that can be used, running the electrical vehicles. So that's how we get started on the work. And on the top of that, not just making the lithium-ion batteries, performing well, but we wanted to also use sustainable resources just to make them cheaper. So people can afford buying a Tesla and doesn't have to pay $100,000 because the batteries are expensive. So that brings us the biomass that we used. We used portobello mushroom battery and made batteries out of this. And then also another sustainable resource we use is the beach sand. So literally, sand from the beach, we took it, we processed it, and then as you can see, the 3 times means that 3 times better performing than what Tesla has in their cars today. And recently also, we used the fossils. So these are like diatoms, and about like 30 million years old. They are in powder format, and we use them and turn them into the materials that we can make batteries out of them, and they also turn to be that like performing way better than the Teslas. I think Tesla will hate me, but they're the batteries that they are using in their cars. So again, the goal here, the performance, but at the same time, lowering the cost so everyone can afford an electrical vehicle, so we can contribute a reduction of the carbon dioxide in the transportation in California, in US, and elsewhere. Since I became the Climate Action Champion professor, so I've been working on the recycling. And recycling, working with all the sustainability directors, and then working on the how good or how bad we are as a UC campus among the system. And so one of the activities that I was doing also using the recycled glass and see if we can make batteries out of them. Indeed, we were able to turn that into a material where we can make batteries, which they are about 4 times better performing. So the next slide will prove you that indeed there is global warming. And with this global warming, I think what we need to do is we need to work all together, and the air that we are breathing is connected, and the oceans are connected, so we cannot ignore any kind of like pollution in the ocean or in the air if it is happening in China or New Delhi in India or in Europe. So we have to really increase this awareness among everyone and work together to lower the pollution everywhere. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it for this award. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Miri. So the interest of time, I'm just going to call all of the panelists up, and I'll read their brief bios and contributions, and we'll have a moderated conversation, after which we'll open it up to the audience. We'll invite all of our honorees up on stage. So first we have Jan Blatcher, who is Distinguished Professor of Education at UCR. Dr. Blatcher is founder and director of SEARCH, Support, Education, Advocacy, Resources, Community, and Hope, Family Autism Resource Center at UCR. She's a nationally known family researcher, advocate, and columnist. Dr. Blatcher is an expert in the development and implementation of appropriate educational programs for children with autism and support services for their families, including screenings and school preparedness placement, with a focus on low-income and/or Spanish-speaking families in the Inland Empire. Please give a warm welcome to Jan Blatcher. Next, we have Gabriela Canalizo. Actually, you know what? We'll go with Rita. It's in alphabetical, but I'm going to call them in the order they're going to sit. Next, we have Rita Coley, who is Assistant Professor of Education, Society, and Culture at UCR. To address diversity in the teaching force and racial inequity in K-12 schools, Rita co-founded and co-directs the Institute for Teachers of Color Committed to Racial Justice. This is designed to promote the retention, growth, and success of teachers of color, and it's an annual summer conference which is highly selective and focus on professional development opportunities that is helping to cultivate and support racial justice leaders in urban public schools throughout the country. Please give a warm welcome to Rita Coley. And then finally, we have Gabriela Canalizo. Professor Canalizo is a professor of physics and astronomy at UCR, but her social innovation goes well beyond that. For 4 to 6 weeks every summer since 2006, Professor Canalizo has taught science and English and organized science workshops for more than 200 children orphaned by AIDS in Malawi. While encouraging these underserved students to stay in school, she ignites an excitement for science and opens young minds to the possibility of college and future careers. Her work abroad has also inspired several UCR students to serve in this and other outreach programs to aid children in poverty. Please give a warm hand for Professor Canalizo. So as you'll see, what's great about the honorees we have up here is that they focus on different areas, although we have two that are from the School of Education, but are also doing their work at different levels. Professor Blatcher, locally and regionally, Professor Coley nationally, and then Professor Canalizo internationally. So first, I just wanted them to have a chance to say a little bit more about the work that they do and what they hope for in the future. So we'll start with Professor Blatcher.
Hi. Thank you all for showing up on a night when you probably wish you were elsewhere. There's a lot I could say, but let me just begin by saying how fortunate I've been since I've been at UCR to have been funded by the federal government to study families of children with disabilities. And that was the most educational experience for me, particularly when I learned that one of the biggest stresses families faced was dealing with service providers and educators like we are. And as decades went by and I met someone like Marie Schultz, who's sitting there in the audience, we put our heads together and thought about the expertise that we had here at UCR in the Graduate School of Education and founded SEARCH. And SEARCH was really intended to meet the needs of families who have children with autism, ultimately, because as you all know, that's a vastly increasing and prominent and prevalent disorder. And our target area is children from low-income families and children from Latino families. These kids have been left out and left behind on the autism train since we've started talking about autism in the 1950s. And even here in the Inland Empire, while we're aware of it, these children are diagnosed later and receive educational and treatment services later than their Anglo counterparts. So SEARCH is intended to speed up the diagnosis to treatment timeline, and we offer free screening clinics for these families in the Inland Empire.
Great. Thank you, Professor Blatcher. We'll have more to say, not only in future comments, but the Q&A, and then all of our honorees will be here afterwards to answer any questions people may have one-on-one. So next we'll go to Professor Coley. So Professor Coley, can you say a little bit more about why there is such a pressing need to have the kind of program that you have founded and run for teachers of color?
Thank you, Karthik, and thank you everyone for being here. it's a well-established fact that there are incredible racial disparities in the educational opportunities that students of color are experiencing and that students across our country are experiencing. Research has shown that teachers of color actually have a huge impact on the academic success, retention, and engagement of students of color. They're more likely to have high expectations of students of color. They're more likely to engage in culturally responsive pedagogy. And a recent study that came out of Penn showed that actually all students had preferences for teachers of color. But we have a huge demographic disparity between our students and our teachers. Students of color are almost comprising half of our public school population, yet teachers of color only make up 18% of the teaching force. And in addition to that, despite recruitment efforts, we see teachers of color leaving the field 24% higher per year than white teachers. And so there's a huge issue of not just our inability to recruit them into the field, but to retain them as well. And so based on a lot of the research, the themes that I was finding in the research, we co-founded and I co-direct the Institute for Teachers of Color, which serves as a space to retain teachers of color and also train them as leaders. So one of the other things that we're seeing is that they're often overlooked for leadership opportunities in their school sites. And so we serve approximately 80 teachers per year. We've served over 400 teachers in the last 6 years that we've had the professional development program. And the teachers come to us from all over the country and engage in racial justice professional development. They develop action plans and they go back to their school sites all across the country and do racial justice work. And so, thank you.
Great. You know, we'll pause there. We'll come back in terms of the future hopes you have. So next, so Gabriela, Professor Canalizo, can you just say how did you get involved? How did you come up with this idea in terms of doing this work in Malawi?
Yes. So this is really, for me, a dream come true, because it's the merger of two worlds, of two passions that I've had all my life. On the one hand is my fascination for stars, for the universe, for learning how things work. On the other hand is a deep desire to help people in need. I actually had a conflict when I was a junior, well, throughout my time in college, where I didn't know which one to pursue. I knew that I was good at physics, I knew that I could do astronomy, and I really wanted to do that since I was a kid. But I felt a responsibility also for other humans and to better their lives. I ended up taking a year off after my college time, and I worked as a volunteer in Mexico with children in poverty. So I was teaching them and inspiring them. And then after that, I think I was ruined for life. I went back to grad school to pursue a PhD in astronomy, but I could not stop thinking about that. So when an opportunity presented to me back in 2006 to join as a very small group that was serving children in absolute poverty, right, in Malawi. These are children that are orphans. When I started working with them, the life expectancy in Malawi was about 30 years. So there was a huge population of orphans and a small population of adults, mostly elderly people who were trying to take care of them and not being able to. So again, when I was invited by this small group of people to come and join them, I was very happy. And my role has been mostly to bring, again, so this is where the two worlds merge, to bring my passion for astronomy, for sciences, for learning, and to inspire them to go to college.
Okay, great. And in fact, we'll just take it in reverse order. So what are your kind of hopes for the future, either for the particular program that you founded or maybe others who might do similar kind of work internationally?
So one of the things that I would really like to see is much more of a merger of my two worlds. I have had the opportunity to get several students here at UCR involved in this group. And I try to bring my experiences from Malawi to the classroom. Even though I teach physics and astronomy, I still manage to bring them videos and show them what we're doing there. I give them opportunities to create teaching aids that I can then bring to Malawi. About 3 alumni from here have actually ended up spending a year in Malawi serving. And what I would like to see is more and more involvement of my students here in the lives of the kids over there.
Great. Rita.
So since we started, one of the major issues that teachers of color are experiencing based on the demographics and other things is that isolation. And so they come together with us in the summer and they engage in this professional development program. Yet when they go back to their school sites, they're often still isolated. And so some of what's been happening are our program has inspired some support programs in other cities. So Houston, Oakland, Chicago have all borrowed from our model and do ongoing work with teachers of color in those spaces. What I'd really love to do with better funding would be to be able to provide them ongoing support through racial justice innovation grants, teacher grants, where they could have small pockets of money to really support the type of work that they're trying to do in schools, whether that's developing a social justice track at their school, trying to advocate for ethnic studies implementation across the district, or working on shifting the school discipline practices at their school site. So those are some of the projects that they're interested in engaging with, and it would just be wonderful to be able to better support and engage in that work long term.
Excellent. Thank you. Jan.
So maybe I should say, is this on?
Hopefully.
Okay. Maybe I should say a little more about search in light of my co-partners here. This is truly a university community collaborative in that we don't just provide services to families who need them in the community, but it's a laboratory for our graduate students to learn techniques for assessing children with autism and other disabilities, for developing research projects. We've got a number of projects going. And so it's almost like a living laboratory within the living laboratory of the Inland Empire. Recently, we've been engaged with the School of Medicine here at UCR and have 2 collaborative projects. We've had our first medical resident do a rotation through search. And we've also expanded the interest among the students, and some of them have been here tonight, so that we have students from PhD programs in special education and school psychology, undergraduates, master's students, and PhD students. So it's a training ground we hope to expand. We've got some proposals floated right now to get additional funds to have a satellite search center at the UCR Palm Desert campus, so we can provide more services for people in the Coachella Valley and work in conjunction with our School of Medicine colleagues on some of the behavioral and mental health needs of families and children. So with that, I'll let you do the next round of questions.
Yeah. And in fact, since we started a little bit late and the audience has been so patient, I'll just let everyone else come up and let them ask the next round of questions, if you guys don't mind, and then we'll break it up. So let's invite the rest of our honorees up here. We'll get a little cozy here. I think we have plenty of room.
We're switching the waters, so we got them right.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a floating mic in the back. If anyone has any, it doesn't need to be a question. It could be, "You're all amazing. You're so great." But whatever thoughts and questions you have. I have a question teed up if someone is still formulating something. We have a question back there. Yeah. So please just introduce yourself. Yeah.
Sure. Hello. Hi, I'm Andy Padalon. I'm in the Oscon lab, actually, 4th year student. So what I'm hoping to ask is kind of a complicated question, so we'll see how it goes. In spite of the way that our country is changing right now, the way that money is going to be working.
I was wondering when that would come up.
Yeah. How would you respond to somebody young like me, a millennial, to inspire other people to have faith in getting education to women and girls in foreign countries and making sure that we're also developing anti-terror and sustainability in developing countries. This is mostly for Dr. Canalizo.
I'm sorry, could you repeat just the last part? How do you?
So how do you inspire other young people to take interest in developing countries that most people aren't probably thinking about? They're more worried about whether or not the global economy is going to crash or something. But making sure that programs like this are continuing to be developed because they're all vital to making sure sustainability efforts, educational, anti-terrorist acts are being taken in other countries. More stable communities bring more peace. So I was just going to wonder what you'd tell someone like me to be involved in being a positive impact on that.
Yeah, so maybe I'll just kind of sum it up. So given this notion of isolationism and America first, and maybe not as many people interested in international service and contributions, what advice you would have to encourage that?
I think Carrie touched on something very important, which is you might not be able to change the whole world, but you can change it for, I don't know how she phrased it, but you can change it for, how you phrase it. You can change it for one person. So one thing that I like to talk a lot to people is to resist the temptation to be paralyzed. When you look at the need of the world and everything else as a whole, it's easy to think there's nothing that I can do. How can I possibly attack this? I mean, how can we possibly attack how the changes locally or the changes globally? And in the case of Malawi, where I've been working, it's one of the poorest countries in the world. You can just do the numbers and think, it doesn't matter what they do, things are not going to change. And so instead of doing that, I like to tell people stories about very specific kids. I like to tell the story about Offen. Offen that was his name. It's one of the kids that I've known since he was 10 years old. And I like to talk about how, even though he was an orphan, we poured into his life how he was able to get food and clothing and go to the school. We encouraged him. We took him on field trips to go see the big city that he had never seen before. We took him to serve in a hospital. And then, after years later, now he's in med school. He's an orphan in a country where only 1% of the population goes to school, and he's in med school. And I'm just so proud of him. And I know that his life has completely been changed. The life of all the people around him will be changed because of him. And when I tell that story to anyone, they get excited about it. And I think it is focusing on very specific stories that can help other people to get excited.
So one question I actually want to piggyback off of that is, so we've focused so much on social innovation, but empowerment is also a part of that. So how do any of you think about not only being change agents yourself, but empowering other people? I think they'll turn around in the back.
Oh, all right. I'll take that, because I think, empowerment is such a big word. It's an action-loaded word, and I think it's an intimidating word for people who are disadvantaged and under-resourced and neglected. And I think that's one of the things that I learned over the years in my own research, and one of the things that we are very mindful of in the Graduate School of Education because of the kids we teach, and at the Search Center. So we work to not only help families, but to empower these families when they go back to their physicians or to another agency or to the school. And I think empowerment is a way to sort of take one idea or one behavior change and spread it through more of a philosophy.
So we have Rita, and I wanted to touch on Carrie if you had any thoughts as well. But Rita, go ahead.
Well, one of the keynotes at our conference last year left our teachers with the sentence, "You are the leaders that you've been waiting for." And I think it's a really powerful sentiment that as we wait for change, sometimes change will not come. And so instead of working within what we have, sometimes we have to reimagine. And I think we don't talk enough about reimagination. And when we reimagine, the world becomes limitless. And so I think that that if we're going to really engage in change from an empowering place where we feel that we can do this work ourselves collectively in our communities, we have to approach it from reimagination.
If you have any thoughts.
Just how I empower my community and the children and the adults that I work with. Just positive reinforcement. I just, I just encourage them. I give them positive feedback on anything that they do. The opportunity to go out and do something. Like Gabriela was saying with the kids, you just give them the opportunity to do something that they've never experienced before. Children and adults. I've worked with children and adults that are older than me, and I've taken them to places they've never been before, and just kind of, just show them that the world is yours, and you can do whatever you want to do, and don't hold yourself back because of these invisible boundaries that you've created or that people have created for you. That, you can do anything that you want to. So that I just kind of positive feedback and positive reinforcement.
Okay, great. Any other questions or thoughts?
We have.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think being a role model also helps in empowering. So not maybe directly to people in need, but all the research that we have done and published and all the news went around the world. So I have received dozens of emails from people that I never met. Mm-hmm. And this includes the children and high school students, college students, and elderly people. And they were just saying, I never thought about this, that we can do, batteries out of mushrooms. So I think just bringing even that innovation and then, start causing dreaming, initiating the dreaming in people. So probably that's also a kind of empowerment that at least we can do, personally, if we cannot reach out far, but at least we can do by our actions.
Excellent. Daniel, do you want to get in on this?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, might as well, right? And then we'll see if there's one more question.
Sure. So touching on empowerment, one thing that we do in our organization is we focus on the small successes. We want to make sure these kids that come from more impoverished backgrounds or have these different constraints, these different barriers in the Inland Empire, that we can show them and work with them, that we can help them get these small successes, whether it be increasing their GPA or helping them work on a project where they're successful, gather different mentors that we know in our organization. Some guys in our organizations are now economists, they're police officers, firefighters, so we have a lot of different success there. So we can plug them into these support networks and help them have these small successes so they become empowered and know that they can keep moving forward and keep building on that foundation. So.
Excellent. A lot of fodder for thought. I'm taking mental notes. They're recording it, so we'll transcribe some of this and try to work that into what we're trying to build on social innovation here. Any other thoughts or questions? So there's a question back there.
Hello. My name is Shamie Cole. I'm a third-year political science student, undergrad. And my question is kind of towards Professor Coley. And as a student leader on this campus, I see a lot of apathy from a lot of students who are around me. And personally, I feel like growing up, I kind of had to inspire myself to be more politicized. So how are we getting our teachers of color to actually encourage civic participation within the classroom?
Well, I think, I've one of the frameworks that's commonly put on students is how do we motivate students? But part of the issue is that children are born into this world naturally wanting to learn. It's a dysfunctional relationship with schooling sometimes that they have, not a dysfunctional relationship with learning. And so I think part of it is how do we create content in classrooms that's meaningful, that helps students really understand the world that they live in, understand the contradictions, understand the inequities that exist around them. And the more that they are able to connect that learning with their communities, with their life, the more naturally engaged you'll see them. So I think part of that development of a critical consciousness or a political understanding comes from helping students to, as Paulo Freire says, not just read the word, but read the word to read the world.
Great. So we are going to wind down our program, but I wanted to invite the other half of the Peden twins up here, and also Maria, so that we can at least take a group photo, and then we'll join you out there. Please give a warm applause for for all of our honorees. And we still have some refreshments, so please enjoy the refreshments, and we will mingle with you in a minute.